Okay, Mayor, we're ready to proceed.
Okay, well, thank you, Susan. We certainly want to welcome everyone to the Benton Town Council meeting for this Tuesday, October 20th. And as per usual, we will start our meeting with the roll call, please.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Lyles,
Here.
Councilmember Mullins,
Here.
Councilmember Stovall,
Here.
Vice Mayor McCarty,
Here.
Mayor Gross.
Here.
We do have a quorum of council, town staff that are present: Pete Peters, Susan Johnson, Ann Cantrell, Chief Drummond, Anita McMillan, Joey Heiner, and Nathan McClung. Also present are Jeremy Carroll, our town attorney, Debbie Adams with the Benton Messenger, Elaine Bays Murphy, and Janet Jonas with Summons Design and Engineering. I would like to confirm that our meeting is being held in accordance with Town Ordinance number 1016 and Section 4-0.01G of Chapter 1289 of the 2020 Acts of the Virginia General Assembly, and everyone present is participating by electronic means. Mayor, the meeting is yours.
Okay, Susan, thank you very much, and certainly want to thank everyone for attending tonight. As usual, we will get our meeting started with a moment of silence. We use that here in Benton so that everyone can pray as they see fit. As always, I will ask you to keep this country, this community, and certainly this council meeting here tonight in your thoughts and prayers. And also just a special time to remember those that have been affected by the terrible COVID-19 pandemic. I'll ask you to stand for a few moments for that, and then I will close. While we're standing, we will ask Councilmember Lyles to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And usually sounds a little better if he just does it by himself, folks. It doesn't sound like screaming cats. So if you want to stand for those two items, if you can, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Father, for the country in which we live and the community, and we just pray that you'll be with us throughout the proceedings tonight, and we especially want to remember those who have been affected by COVID-19. Amen. Councilman Lyles?
Yes, thank you, Susan. There's the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, folks. And with that, we will move on to the upcoming events. Our Vice Mayor McCarty usually handles that for us.
Yes, I have several. October the 28th, the History Museum charity auction. And I think some of our local businesses have their chairs in their windows displays. So we've gotten several comments about that. That should be a fun event. October the 30th, Halloween movie on the lawn of the War Memorial. It's Hocus Pocus. It's from 7 until 9. And that will be a great time. We had a wonderful time at National Night Out. The police department did an awesome job with that night. And so that helped us get more prepared for this event. And I'm sure it will be just as exciting as that. We will have free popcorn and sodas that night as well. So please come, bring the little ones dressed up. I think there will be a Halloween, they'll be judging their Halloween costumes. Of course, it's a little ways off, but go ahead and mark your calendars for December the 3rd for the Benton Christmas Parade and the tree lighting at 6:30. And I've got several others, but that's quite a while out. So I'm just gonna announce those right now. I believe they still are doing the ice skating at the lot. So that is something fun that you can get some exercise, have a good time with. And unless anyone else has anything, that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Any other announcements for this evening? If not, we will move on. Next item is request to postpone or change anything on the agenda. Anyone have anything? All right. If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. There's quite a few items on there tonight, several minutes from our previous meetings, as well as some resolutions. I assume you've all had an opportunity to take a look at that. Are there any changes or corrections or additions? If not, we will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Okay, I think I heard Vice Mayor McCarty make the motion. Mike, was that you that made the second?
Yeah, me and Mr. Lyles, he's a little slow now. It's like,
Keep him on the ball there. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, and with that, we'll move on to the fun part of the meeting, the awards and introductions. We have a very special guest with us tonight, a good friend, Elaine Bays Murphy. And I understand that Councilmember Mullins has a proclamation for her this evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Elaine Bays Murphy retired on October 1st, 2020, after serving for over 26 years at the Roanoke Valley Television. And whereas Ms. Bays Murphy began her career with RVTV3 on August 8, 1994 as a television production assistant, later serving as a television producer, cable TV government coordinator, and in 1997 was promoted to director of cable access. And whereas while as director of RVTV3, Ms. Bays Murphy directed many initiatives that benefited the citizens of the town of Benton, Roanoke County, Roanoke City, and their respective school systems by recording and broadcasting public meetings, promoting local and regional public events, and creating public service videos. And whereas during her tenure at RVTV3, an automated programming playback system was launched, remote cameras were installed to cover the Roanoke City Council and Roanoke County Board of Supervisors meetings, and RVTV3 was one of the first government and educational access stations in Virginia to offer meetings with closed captions. And whereas Ms. Bays Murphy worked with the local governments during franchise negotiations with Cox Communications to ensure the future of RVTV3 operations, effectively modernized the station and equipment to include digital cameras, production software, and an aerial video drone, directed the creation of the RVTV3 website, Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Twitter page, and oversaw the completion of the transition from analog to a digital signal in 2019. Now, therefore, I, Bradley E. Gross, Mayor of the Town of Benton, and on behalf of Town Council and all our citizens, do hereby express our sincere appreciation and thanks to Elaine Bays Murphy for her distinguished and outstanding commitment to public service, and especially for her service to the Benton community, and extend best wishes to her for many happy and successful years in her retirement. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the Town of Benton, Virginia, to be affixed on this, the 20th day of October, 2020.
All right.
Yay, Lane.
Yay!
Thank you, Lord, for reading the proclamation.
Yes,
And
sir.
Elaine, if I might say just briefly that I've certainly appreciated working with you. You've always been very professional and you know, you've certainly done a great job for Benton and actually the entire valley. So thank you for all the hard work. And in addition, you've been a nice person. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments?
yeah, I do. naturally, as I've always said, we do this work today, but we leave a legacy. And you can pause for a moment and look back of all the things that you've done and where RBTV is right now and all the different avenues that you followed and the money you've chased and all that. So, happy retirement, great job. Naturally, back in the day, your husband and I were in police work together, and it just. But congratulations. I mean, you've done a lot. You brought it where it is today. So congratulations and happy retirement.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Elaine. We
I just want to
appreciate
say congratulations, Elaine. It was a pleasure working with you on the committee and getting to know you. And I had mentioned at town council that you just don't realize what all goes on until you serve on that committee and you see all the hats that you wear. So you did an awesome job. You have a lot to be proud of. And I just hope that you and your husband continue to enjoy your retirement, and I'll keep up with you on Facebook.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will too. Elaine, thanks for everything that you've done for the town, and you've had a marvelous career, respected by many throughout this community for the work that you've done. We couldn't be more proud of you, and just happy retirement.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Elaine. And in my short time just getting to know you, I've really enjoyed it. And I'm very lucky and blessed to have been put on the committee so we could cross paths. And I wanted to say happy retirement. Enjoy every minute.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Anyone else? Well, again, Elaine, thank you, and good luck with keeping John in line there. So.
Thank you. I just wanted to say the town of Denton is a very special place. I just attended the fall festival a few weeks ago. It's you're unique and you're real, and it's been an honor to have served.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Very nice for you to say that. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next item, I understand Chief Drummond's going to talk about some police department awards.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of council, town staff, and everybody that's involved in our meeting this evening. Today, I get to highlight some of the awards banquets nominees or awards that we presented a couple weeks ago. These awards are to highlight last year's awards regarding a lot of good deeds, basically a lot of things that a lot of officers have done that we want to recognize. These things occurred in 2019, like I mentioned, and we didn't get to recognize it, unfortunately, till November because of all the health crisis and the situation. So we couldn't meet in person. So we had to delay it a little bit. But if you could, Ms. Johnson, you put it on the next slide. So with these awards, I'll highlight some of the briefings that were shared during these award banquets for traffic safety. And the traffic safety award was given to Corporal Jordan Keith. And some of the highlights from the speeches given at this banquet was that officers are sworn to enforce the laws, including traffic laws that are given the authority to do so. With this information in mind, the traffic stop is arguably one of the most valuable self-initiated activities that a police officer can perform. This award is presented to the officer that shows the most proactive enforcement when it comes to traffic safety related enforcement and education components. In Virginia alone, 827 motorists lost their lives in our roadways. And when we aspire to be officers, one common trend that most officers will tell an agency is their desire to save lives and of course to help our communities. One critical component of that is our traffic safety component and its very principles as we enter the profession. And as private citizens, we want to live in our safe communities. As officers, we're exposed to the dangers that are associated with unsafe driving habits. Consistent traffic safety involves a commitment that stretches beyond the scope of the traffic stop and citizen. Proactive enforcement leads to hours of committed time in our courtrooms and the fact that the community expects the law enforcement agency to keep up with this, keep them safe and keep our roadway safe. And on that day, we recognize Corporal Jordan Keith for his significant achievements in 2019 as the recipient of the Traffic Safety Award. The next award that you see in the bottom of the slide is Traffic Safety DUI Award, which obviously encompasses driving under the influence and driving under the influence of narcotics and the education that involves alcohol-related offenses. And to capture some of the moments that were shared during the awards banquet is every day, almost 30 people in the United States die in drunk driving crashes. That's one person every 50 minutes. These deaths have fallen by a third in the last 3 decades. However, drunk driving crashes claim more than 10,000 lives per year. And 2010 alone, the most recent year for crash data, deaths and damages contributed to a cost of $44 billion per year. So driving after drinking is obviously deadly and costly. Yet it continues to happen across the United States. Approximately 1/3 of all traffic crash fatalities in the United States involve drunk driving. And over a 10-year period, almost 10,000 people have died every year in drunk driving crashes. According to the CDC itself, a drunk driver will drive approximately 80 times under the influence before their first arrest or first apprehension with law enforcement. As you've probably noticed, tough enforcement of our drunk driving laws is a major contributor to reducing unnecessary and preventable deaths. As law enforcement, one of the main goals of drunk driving enforcement is to raise the perception among the drivers. And if they choose to drive drunk, they will be stopped and investigated. This year, or last year, 2019, we recognize Officer Jeremy Shrewsbury as the recipient of our Driving Under the Influence Award. And those are the two captions, the two pictures you see on your screen. Last year, voted on by its peers, and how it works here is officers are voted by their peers. So it's a vote that's chosen by the members of the Vinton Police Department. And in this particular year, for 2019, Sergeant Michael Caldwell was the recipient of our Leadership Award. And I will just capture some of the examples and some of the nominations that they wrote as far as voting tallies go. He maintains a positive attitude and is always good for a laugh, well-rounded supervisor who wears many hats, always reaching out to officers to assist in any way possible. He's absolutely loved by the students and staff of both of our elementary schools. He took a little bit of a hiatus from CSO and returned to patrol duties and continued to take care of his responsibilities as a community resource officer while balancing his patrol function. Since taking over community services officer, he has closely worked with property managers, landlords, in order to resolve a lot of problems that we have in our communities and help and influence a lot of families in the time of need. He's a great example of what every officer should strive to be. And those captions I read is what the other officers are saying about Sergeant Mike Caldwell as far as his leadership abilities go. So we're very proud to have that award. The recipient of the 2019 Officer of the Year Award was Officer Brandon Alterio. And Officer Brandon Alterio is very young in our department, and to make such a awesome impression on the rest of us is something that we're very proud of. And what was captioned behind that was that on that day, we recognized one officer recognized by his peers for his devotion to the town, the agency, and our profession. The officer has exhibited exemplary skills, a can-do attitude, and a want to succeed. Officer Alterio serves the community with excellence, compassion, and fairness. For someone so young in his law enforcement career to exhibit such a strong character and skill in being a well-rounded officer is a blessing for our team. We look forward to watching him grow and become an even better person. And some of the captions from his nominations that we shared with the rest of the department was that he's great at community policing, and finding an officer with a passion as strong as his is very rare. Evident he has a bright future ahead of him within our police department ranks. Alterio exemplifies everything the town of Vinton and his department is trying to portray into their police officers. Several occasions he has worked over at the time of need when officers needed someone and time to help. Instead of being able to spend time at home with his family, he volunteered his services and stayed over and helped his patrol function. Last year, he purchased a young bike for a town resident, a young boy. His bike was stolen right before Christmas of last year. Alterio took it upon himself to purchase a bike for the young man and also purchase gifts for his younger sister. These efforts were very widely recognized by the community and even segments on our media outlets. Notably, he recovered 5 stolen firearms and arrested the suspect on multiple felony misdemeanor warrants. His investigation led him into multiple jurisdiction and multiple search warrants that were executed to assist in those arrests. In addition, Officer Alterio also identified the suspect in a separate larceny incident, which recovered in a stolen property. He has an awesome attitude, strives for professionalism, has an undoubted ability to stay calm in stressful situations, and understands how to communicate with our community and in a knowledgeable way. So we're very proud to give Officer Alterio, nominate him by his peers for Officer of the Year for the 2019 calendar year. And those are our awards recipients from 2019. It is an absolute blessing, an absolute honor to be able to highlight some of the components of Vinton PD. We have an extraordinary crew here, officers devoted to our community, and we absolutely love serving. And we're very proud for us to be able to share that with you this evening. Thank you.
All right. Well, Chief, thank you very much for that report. And we certainly want to congratulate all those award winners and express our appreciation to them for their individual efforts and just our appreciation to the entire department. I often say you folks continue to make us proud, and so we're really blessed to have a professional police department. I think those awards are a good example of what you guys do every day. So, any other comments? All right. If not, we will move on. Chief, thank you again. We appreciate that very much. Next item is citizen comments and petitions. Susan, have you received any requests or petitions?
No, Mayor, and if I might make one other comment, since we initially opened our meeting, we have been joined by Janet Scheid, also Donna Collins, a member of our town staff, and Kevin McNulty, who is with Cox Communications.
Awesome. Good, good. Well, good to have you folks with us this evening. Glad you're here. Okay, if there are no comments or petitions at this time, we'll move on to the first public hearing of the evening, which concerns a small cell franchise agreement, and that would be the town of Vinton and Cox Wireless Access. So I'll officially open the meeting, and we'll start with a report from our town attorney, if you would please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Very briefly, the purpose of this franchise agreement is to grant, can y'all hear me okay? To grant Cox Communications a franchise to use the public rights of way and public property in the town of Vinton to expand its small cell wireless infrastructure. Small cells are intended to avoid the use of the larger towers to give you they have a smaller range, but they also are less obtrusive and more aesthetically pleasing. There's a statutory process that the town has followed thus far. It began way back in November of last year when we issued a request for proposals. The request for proposals was to solicit proposals for people to provide these services along with providing those infrastructure companies access to the rights of way and town property. In December of 2019, we received those bids. They were opened at a town council meeting, and the only bidder at the time was Cox Communications. A process began of negotiating the franchise agreement with Cox Communications. At the same time, y'all will remember my law partner, Mike Lockaby, helped with modifying the town zoning ordinance to bring it into compliance with state and federal laws and regulations that apply to small cell wireless infrastructure. At the same time, town staff drafted the guidelines. They're included in your council packet this evening, the small cell design guidelines. And I understand from Mr. Peters, those will be up for potentially a vote at the November 3rd meeting, I believe. Over the months since the opening of the bids back in December, there have been negotiations, as I mentioned, between Cox and town attorney, my office, Mr. Popovich in my office has assisted in that. And they've arrived at the franchise agreement that you have before you here this evening. In addition, there's a master license agreement before you this evening. The franchise agreement allows Cox access, like I said, to the public rights of way and to public property for running infrastructure. The license agreement provides an opportunity for them to actually post antennas on town-owned poles and town-owned buildings, and provide some more strict details and guidelines as to how that is to be done and what they must, the approvals they must obtain for the antennas to be posted. There is a fee of $270 per pole location on town-owned poles. And there is a provision for a smaller fee. It's yet to be determined the amount of that fee for antennas that are posted on town-owned buildings. The purpose for the lesser fee is to incentivize the location of those antennas on buildings rather than on poles. So that is what is here tonight for the public hearing. The two agreements, and I wanted to give you a little background on the process. I know Mr. McNulty is here this evening. I believe Mr. McNulty has worked with Mark Popovich in negotiating the franchise agreement and the master license agreement, and I'm sure he's ready, willing, and able to answer any questions town council may have. And Anita has been involved as well, and she certainly can answer questions as well.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy, very much. And I'll certainly give council an opportunity to ask questions in just a moment. But first, I would like to ask Susan if she has received any public comments on this.
No, Mayor, no comments.
Okay. Anyone in our group online here have any comments? If not, we will move to town council. Council, any comments or questions?
Yeah, Mayor, I have just a few questions. So before the November 3rd, will we find out the other fee? Would be my first question. And then the second one, I know that when we were discussing this, we were talking about the poles that we have downtown Benton. Would those be used for that? As far as, I know there was some provisions, but wondering if any of our aesthetic light poles or however you call them will be used for those antennas in a big box underneath them and things like that.
Jeremy, you want to take that or?
Well, there are limitations in the agreement as to which poles, there's a process for determining which poles will be used. I can't speak to the specific poles you're referencing, Keith. Mr. McNulty, do you know if there's an issue with regard to those poles? And are you talking about the light poles, Keith?
Yes, the lamp posts.
Okay.
That we're getting ready on an avenue with as well.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and answer that. I'm sorry, go ahead and answer that question.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes. Go ahead.
It is in the agreement that they are not to put the facility on the ornamental lighting downtown.
Oh.
Good.
And
Okay.
also the design guidelines specifically mention that we prohibit any wireless provider to have those to be attached to the ornamental pedestrian lighting downtown, and any building that have been improved under the CDBG grant.
Councilmember Lyles makes a great point because, naturally, one of the things that I talked about in one of the council meetings was the fact of, we've got the municipal building, there's buildings downtown. And so back to you, Jeremy, do we know the placement? I guess the question is, which is a great question, Councilman Lyles, do we know the placement of them or?
I don't believe we do know the placement of them. I think that's the purpose of the guidelines that are included, as
Right.
well as section 4 of the
Right.
section 3 of the agreement goes through the locating of poles. That's the grant, that's the franchise agreement I'm looking at.
Yeah, because section 2, well, yeah. So section 3, you're right, it does describe that.
It's-
So,
Section, yeah.
right.
And what, yeah, there's an application process. It's section 5. I knew I was getting that wrong. I apologize. Section 5, which dictates how they go through the process of applying for a specific location. And at the
Right.
end of section 5, it says they have to comply with the design guidelines, which is where we come in and we have the requirements for, as Anita was discussing, making the antennas conform to the design, the broader design elements of downtown.
Okay, so does that mean eventually when the actual installation is planned, that we'll get to see the plan that includes the exact locations?
Great question.
Is that what that means?
That's a great question.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Please.
as part of the requirement under the, when we amended the zoning ordinance for telecommunication ordinance, they are required to submit site plan showing the location of the proposed, where they're gonna put it.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. And then one other
And
question.
the only thing I would add to that, Mr. Mayor, is again, the guidelines, the design guidelines are also going to control
Correct.
how and where they go to some extent.
Okay,
So you get a voice in adopting those guidelines as well.
okay,
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. That's great.
Thank-
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. Good information, good information. Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, we will officially close the public hearing, and I understand that the official action will be taken at our next council meeting on November 3rd. So, and with that, we'll move to the second public hearing, and this is to take comments concerning the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG application. And that's, of course, concerning our housing grant that we've been applying for. So I will officially open the hearing and we'll ask for our staff report from Nathan. So Nathan, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So tonight's the second public hearing. You may be confused because you've been briefed on this twice before. The last time you were briefed was before the grant application was submitted in the spring of this year. Unfortunately, we did not attain the grant award for the spring opening. However, the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development is opening it up for a fall submission. October 30th is the deadline. There's less funds available. They're allowing 3 to 4 million to be available for this fall submission. However, we have done the necessary steps to tailor the application, and we've also met with the grant manager, which I'll talk about here in a minute, in order to refine some of the details. And we actually met with DHCD staff and the associate director of this program to hone in on what we can improve and ways to improve our score. And they actually have encouraged us to reapply. And we are continuing to utilize the services of Summit Design Engineering with Janet Jonas being our consultant, and she's on this meeting as well. But I'm just gonna go through the presentation, highlight the major things you've heard before. I'll briefly go over, and then I'll really be sure to highlight what has changed since the previous application in the spring. So the project team is made up of a diverse group of people with various skills and work in different sectors and cover different backgrounds. We have community representatives, council members and former council members. We've had citizens who live in the neighborhoods. I like town staff, of course, from Public Works, Planning and Zoning, and Admin, consultants, and then also members of DHCD as well to help guide us, and members of the Regional Planning Commission as well. So just a brief overview, the CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant. The enabling legislation was from the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. The federal overseer of that is HUD, with the state administrator being DHCD. Keep in mind the major objectives for these grant programs are to benefit LMI or low to moderate income families or households, eliminate blight and slum, and then also to meet urgent community needs in the case of disaster or extremely blighted conditions, or other things such as like the CARES Act program and during times that are unprecedented. Vinton is a non-entitlement community. There's some communities across the state that get money automatically every year based on their size and density. And then all the rest of us have to compete for the funds that are left over in their budgets. This is just an overview of what the Community Improvement Grant covers. It covers a broad range of things. It's supposed to be comprehensive. So even though this is a neighborhood revitalization grant, it's not just housing. We're also talking about infrastructure, public safety, and blight, and the improvements of community facilities in a comprehensive manner. As I mentioned before, for this fall one, they're allowing $3 to $4 million in funds to be available. The spring 2020 award awarded 7 communities at around $7.1 million. So based on that math and just the average amount of funds that gets allocated towards each community, you can assume that they're going to pick around 4, 5 max, most likely 4 communities for the second round. So we're really hoping that with a strong application, we'll be able to work towards achieving this grant award. And we've been working on it for over 2 years, and you all have heard every step of this grant, and many of you have been here throughout the entire duration of this project. Vinton is not new to CDBG projects. We've done comprehensive community development grants. We've done business district revitalization, and also assisted with the VITA program that the Advancement Foundation administers. As you may know, we've honed in on the West Cleveland and Cedar area. And by we, when I use the word we, I'm talking about the project team, not talking specifically about town staff. I'm talking about this group of individuals that includes community spark plugs and includes individuals from different backgrounds and different areas of specialty. But the major reason why the West Cleveland and Cedar area was selected was not only because of the housing conditions and needs in the area, but that being number one, but also we were recommended by the HED staff to capitalize on our previous CDBG project success in a downtown area with picking a historic neighborhood like the Cleveland neighborhood to kind of have a domino effect and continue on that success based on its proximity, and then just based on the history of that neighborhood, the need there, and especially like the rehabilitative and infrastructural needs in that neighborhood. I do want to mention, going back, we're talking about the spark plugs, really important. We've had some of our base advocates were individuals who live in this neighborhood who actually went and spoke to their neighbors and got them on board with the program. One being a local public school bus driver who, was just really passionate about the goals of the program and wanted to talk to her neighbors and get them on board in order to increase participation. In terms of the initial planning activities, we did a ton of surveying. We used various different mediums. We used social media. Every single door was knocked on at least 3 times. A plastic door hanger was hung on each doorknob for 2 of those times. We sent a robocall to everyone in the neighborhood, and we even did alternate timings to try to meet the needs of different shift workers. So we did a Saturday canvas with members of the community, and we try to go in at different times of the day when we did do these things. These neighborhood surveys initially were windshield surveys to determine just preliminary what the state of the housing looked like on the outside. But then when you actually got down to later in the process is when people were on board and we determined their eligibility. We actually had housing specialists go in and analyze the interior and exterior of the structure to see what the needs would be for this. Keep in mind the CDBG's goals of warm, safe, and dry. So it's not it's not going to be extreme makeover house edition. It's going to be warm, safe, and dry. So you're not doing, major work for like solely aesthetic work, but you're doing things to keep people warm, safe, and dry and make these housing units livable and decent. One major thing I wanted to highlight, and this is actually calls back to the current resolution, the council agenda package. But originally, when we did a preliminary engineering report, we included housing, water, sidewalks, paving, and other improvements that we'll talk about later. Most all of those have been preserved or even improved upon. However, the one that will be removed from this is the stormwater improvements, and those are stormwater improvements that were on First Street and South Pollard. It was determined with the grant management team that we needed to redefine some of that match and what our project objectives were. And it was determined that that stormwater improvement really was not benefiting a lot of the LMI or even the non-LMI households in the neighborhood. And it was more affecting commercial properties on Pollard Street, which really was on the far reaches or even outside of the project area. So that's been eliminated. And just to be specific in the resolution, the last two paragraphs in the first page, we removed the portion that says completed a preliminary engineering report and cost estimate for the stormwater drainage and improvements to the water, sewer, and street utilities. That will now just read cost estimate for improvements to the water and street utilities. And that's because we're no longer doing cost estimates for the stormwater or sewer. The street utilities are still included. And then that next paragraph, additionally, what's been removed is the sentence after indicated significant instance of water odor and color issues, and further indicated that periodic flooding caused by inadequate storm drainage system in the area is a blighting influence. That's been eliminated, and now it will just read water odor, taste, and color issues, with all of those things mentioned above being ongoing threats to public health and safety and welfare. That's the major change. Most everything else is being preserved and the original project goals, or it's actually been improved, and we've actually found more matching.
Nothing you got.
Oh, okay.
The next thing, this is the timeline. We're planning to submit October 30th, but this kind of gives an overview of the neighborhood meetings and all the work that's been done since January of 2019. The public hearings on October, or today is after this public hearing. We're going to continue tailoring the grant with the consultant and members of staff, and then we plan on submitting before that October 30th deadline, and then hopefully if we attain the grant later in this PowerPoint, I'll show you what it will be like after we do attain this grant. The proposed improvements, you can kind of think about this in three major boxes if you want to visualize it and something easy to grasp. You have housing rehab, which is a major portion of the program of 8 units, seven of those being owner occupied, one of those being investor owned. Then you have the acquisition, clearance, and relocation, and that includes the floodplain properties that are being applied for through the VDEM pre-disaster mitigation grant, with 15 property owners, 19 residential units in its entirety, including the West Cedar Mobile Home Village, a duplex, a triplex, and a few other manufactured homes that are on other parcels that are in the floodway or 100-year floodplain. And then 2 blight abatement properties that are just houses that have been vacant and are dilapidated and are determined to be blight will be demoed. And then finally, the final box is infrastructure, which includes water supply and delivery, pedestrian access, which includes sidewalks, ADA compliant curb ramps and access to both the downtown and to the Greenway. And then streets as well, with matching our paving schedule in a way that works like patchwork, but it'll allow for a nice match from the town with cost savings with including that in the grant. In terms of water supply and delivery, we actually have recent news thanks to our consultant, talking with CERCAP, that they've offered $100,000 to allow for water delivery systems, both on the public or private side, and both inside and outside the house to be attributed to this program. So individuals in this neighborhood in the project area will be able to have improvements to the water lines that are, both private or public. But one thing that we try to focus on, we just couldn't find the correct grant program that would pay for the private side, but this was a great program, and we're happy that CERCAP is offering their service here to this. And the main reason why the water delivery systems was selected to begin with is because when we were doing these house-to-house surveys, we were realizing that individuals that had complaints about water, odor, taste, and smell. But they're all in this one. There are two main truncated lines that go down West Cleveland and Cedar. But we had individuals at one house that would have complaints about the water quality, but then a house to the next door would have no complaints at all about the quality of the water. But we sort of realized that older housing stock, and also homes that maybe their laterals haven't been replaced in 3 or more decades, those are the ones having the complaints about the water quality. So we assume that a lot of that quality degradation was caused on the private side. So this is great for this grant, and hopefully it'll benefit the lives of many people in that neighborhood. This is an overview of the budget. As I said, housing rehab, we have the CDBG request plus the matching funds for that. Those matching funds, including the CERCAP funds. Acquisition, clearance, relocation, the major match there being the VDM grant. The infrastructure water supply improvement is actually from the town CIP for the First Street water main replacement project. Infrastructure with pedestrian access and streets like paving and sidewalks is estimated about $531,000, and then finally administration would be $100,000, bringing us to a total of, we're requesting $1.3 million from the CBG with a $1.08 million match, which is a strong match. When you can almost match it 1-for-1, it's a pretty incredible feat. Here are the resources I just mentioned. And then here's the grant timeline after we submit it. If it's awarded in late spring, then we'll sign the contract with the HD in late summer of 2021, and then the project will begin implementation. But any of your questions, that's all I have. And yeah. For right now, I said open the floor for any kind of questions before we have public comment. But members of the public can ask questions.
Okay. All right, Nathan, thank you very much for that report. And of course, we do want to receive public comments. I understand that Janet is with us tonight and she'd like to comment on this item.
Yes, sir. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I've been involved in this project since the beginning, and I just want to encourage the project to continue. The staff has done a great job. I'd like to extend my support to them, to Pete and to Nathan and to Anita and everyone else on staff that has helped with this project. Even though we didn't receive the grant money this last go round, I do think it's a great project. I think the state just hasn't realized that yet, but they will eventually. And I think there's a lot of good work to be done there. I do still want to voice concerns about the mobile homes and trailers at the end of Cleveland. I think we need to be careful about the relocation there. It would be great to get those residents out of the floodplain, but I still have some concerns about the relocation of them into warm, safe, and dry housing that's of equivalent price of what they're paying now. So I think we just need to keep our eye on that and figure out how we're going to get that to work. But in general, I think it's a great project, and I encourage it to keep moving forward. And hopefully the next go round, the state will see fit to give us the money we need for it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Janet, thank you very much. We appreciate all your hard work on this project, and you've certainly been devoted, and we certainly appreciate your valuable input. Are there any other comments from anyone online with us?
Mayor Gross, if I may, I'd have a couple comments.
Sure.
One, I just wanted to recognize the staff's contributions to this, Nathan, Anita, Joey. There's been quite a bit of involvement from various departments. I'd like to recognize Janet Jonas for her contributions. Actually, over the last year and a half or so, and then even with the second grant application, and Janet Scheid for your contributions as well. I did just want to also make a comment that it's not uncommon that localities such as town have to apply for grant funds multiple times in order to receive those funds. In some cases, the projects that were awarded ahead of us had also applied multiple times or second phases to initial projects that had been awarded. So I applaud Nathan, particularly his efforts to pick up since the first application didn't receive funding and do this extra work to get us prepared for this next application. And Janet Jonas for your contributions here to get us over the hump, to get us ready for this next application cycle. Thank you, Mayor Gross.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else online before I turn it over to council?
Mayor, if I may, this is Janet Jonas. I want to thank you all again for the continued opportunity to work with the town of Vinton. You are such a joy to work with and such a wealth of information amongst all of your staff and your elected officials. You all are just wonderful people. One of the things I did want to bring up that we have added to our package or to our program, specifically because of some of the concerns Ms. Scheid brought up, is that we are including in our project a housing counselor to help with the relocation of these individuals. And we are working to partner with another firm, either with CERCAP or with TAP, who are more familiar with the Roanoke housing market and have housing counselors on their staff. So we're working that into our new proposal to specifically address that concern. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that comment. That's certainly good to hear. So we appreciate that information very much. Susan, have you received any other comments concerning this item?
No, Mayor, no other comments.
Okay. All right, with that, I will turn it over to council. Council, you have any questions or any comments at this time?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I don't have any questions. I'm excited about this project since we have a business and currently living right here, right up against the area that we're talking about. I think it's a wonderful, absolutely, definitely needed, and I know the citizens and homeowners are going to really benefit from this.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Thank you for that. Anyone else? And I certainly agree with Lori's comments. I think our citizens will benefit. And I know this has been a lot of work. It's been going on for quite a while. Staff has worked hard on it. The committee has worked hard on it, as Janet knows. But we'll get there, like Pete said, just to reiterate, sometimes it takes more than one application, sometimes, even three. So we want to continue to pursue this. It's certainly worthwhile and will be of great benefit to our community. So thank you folks for all the hard work. If there are no other comments, we will officially close the public hearing at this time. Council, you have before you a resolution that would authorize the application or reapplication for the grant we've discussed here this evening. Is there a motion?
Mayor,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead, Lori.
I move to adopt the resolution.
And I'll second. And I'll just also comment that great work, Nathan, and everyone involved. Keep it up. We'll get there.
Yeah, great work. Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Susan, would you please call the roll?
Before I call the roll, Mayor, if Councilmember Mullins and Councilmember Lyles would not mind redoing their motion for the resolution as revised by that Nathan indicated.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Yes, I consider, I move that we adopt the resolution revised.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for keeping us straight there. I forgot about that. Thank you.
No
So we do
problem.
have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. Ready for the roll call?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Councilmember Lyles,
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins,
Yes.
Councilmember Stovall,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCarty,
Yes.
Mayor Gross.
Yes, resolution passes. Thank you, folks, very much. And thank you, Susan, for mentioning that revision there. I forgot all about that. So, okay, as the next item is town attorney, Jeremy. I don't see anything else listed, but good to have you with us tonight. Appreciate your help on that earlier item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You betcha. Thank you. So, Mr. Town Manager, it's your turn.
A very short section for the town manager this evening. Just have one briefing, and this will be for the service line warranty and the leak protection program, and I will allow Ms. Ann Cantrell to provide that staff update.
Sure thing. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so there's a couple things we wanted to review with you here tonight, and then we also wanted to see if you have any questions regarding these two policies. So there's one, which is a service line warranty. This covers the water line, the sewer line, and the interior plumbing. There's a different rate structure for that. So one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about tonight is royalty or no royalty. Staff recommends going with no royalty, just because if we do royalty, we feel like it may need to go out to bid. And also it's just kind of the appearance of it doesn't always pass the sniff test. So we would recommend the no royalty option, which would be monthly $525 for water and $949 for interior plumbing. And if you look on that on an annual basis, it's $58 for water, $82 for sewer, $108.99 for interior plumbing. So they get to kind of pick and choose on this plan. Okay, I want to cover my water line. I want to cover my sewer line. I want to do the whole thing. You can do none of it. You can do pieces of it. One thing about this program we wanted to mention is town staff has no administration for this program. So this would be wholly done by HomeServe. They would do the mailing. They would do all the enrolling, the billing. All of that would be handled by that third party. So the only thing that we would need to provide to them is obviously support. We would need to support the program. We would need to allow them to use our logo for marketing. We would also need to provide them with mailing addresses for the citizens on our water and sewer. And the other program that we're considering tonight is the Serve Line Utilities Protection. So this covers water and sewer leaks with regard to billing. So the town has a current leak adjustment plan. We write off 40% of interior leaks above their average consumption, and we write off 50% of outside leaks above the average consumption. We haven't been able to track this well in the past to give you a great number, but I'll tell you our net adjustments for fiscal year 20 were $94,971. The town could also elect to do a leak adjustment program through this company where the customer pays the premiums and there would be no rate adjustment needed because they're paying the premiums separately. Town staff would have to administer this policy. They want you to add it to your water and sewer billing. So we would have to enroll customers, we would have to do the billing, we would have to collect the funds and so forth. And then the last option is we could do the leak adjustment program and the town pays the premiums itself, so the customer doesn't pay any of those premiums. There is a discount, 10%, if you elect that option, but you may need to increase your rates to cover it. And also there's less flexibility, so you don't give your customers a chance to opt in or opt out. So one thing I did want to note on here is the leak adjustment program does not cover irrigation leaks, swimming pool adjustments, seeding, negligent acts, like I left my water hose running, where some of that we do offer that to citizens now. I'll do an adjustment on that. However, it would cover 100% of the increased consumption. Instead of right now, we only write off 40, 50%. And that's probably one of the more frustrating parts for our citizens when they call in they want a leak adjustment to take them down to their average bill, and that's just not something that we currently provide. I estimate that if we did this program, that our premiums would probably be somewhere in the $150,000 range. And there's a few things I wanted to add in here because I had some questions from Debbie. She asked about opting in or auto add. That's an option that you all would have. We could either auto enroll all of our customers, or we could make them opt in. We would recommend that if we're eliminating our leak adjustment program, that we do auto enroll our customers, because we don't want somebody to have a leak and then they didn't auto enroll and they have to pay the full bill, and that would just not be a fun place to be at. There's also normally an opt-out period if you do an auto enroll, where they have 30 to 60 days to opt out, and you can back that out of the bill. And then the other question she asked was regarding property owner data. Name and addresses are always open to the public. So if a business calls us now, that is something that we do provide. So we don't provide any of the confidential information, no payment data. We won't even provide them consumption, except for on this leak program if they have to do a bill write-off for us. And lastly, she said for the average person, how much would it cost? Kind of going to depend on what they elect, but I kind of jotted down here, if somebody did the $220 a month and the $525 for the water and the $725 for the sewer, it would be about $24.19 a month would be the total cost on that. So I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have. I may not have all the answers. I'd be glad to get them for you.
Okay. Thank you, Ann, very much for that report. Council, you have any questions or comments on this? No.
Yeah, I do, Mayor.
Come here.
So when we first started talking about this was like a service that we were going to offer to our citizens. And now it sounds like it's something that we're going to either take something away. We can keep our leak adjustment, or did I hear we're not going to keep that?
They recommend if we do the leak protection program, that replaces your leak adjustment plan. So you wouldn't offer both.
Right, but if we auto everyone in, then we don't have a leak adjustment plan, correct?
Right, the towns would be gone, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just my personal opinion, I think that's a lot of money for someone to pay that, just may have just replaced their water line and put in new pipes and everything in their house. And then they're going to be charged, I think, what, $329 if they get it all for the year. That's a lot. That's about that's more than what I pay for water. I don't have a sewer. I pay, that's a lot of money. So just my opinion. We're not voting on this or anything tonight, right?
No.
Well,
Like
that's right. I'm sorry. But you're right, Keith, we're not voting on it tonight. So, we can investigate those comments further, because that's a good point. But now it's my understanding that each of the households can opt out if they would like. Isn't that correct?
Yes, and I think I want to make sure we're not getting the two policies confused. So you could do one policy, not the other. The one that we were talking about that we would auto enroll would be the leak adjustment program only if we elected to do it that way. This one from Servline, that covers the water line, the sewer line, the interior plumbing. The town has nothing to do with that. So they do a direct mailing to customers, and they actually have to do the paperwork to enroll. So they would have to fill it out and say, I want to pay this. I want to be covered.
All right.
Okay. Well, like you say, Keith, we're not voting on this tonight. So there's a lot to this program. So in fact, we may need to get some more information out to council and before we take an actual vote on it. That's something that perhaps we can discuss at another council meeting there.
Yeah, just auto enroll. I just don't like, I mean, that doesn't sound very good.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. Okay. All righty. Pete, did you have anything else this evening?
No, sir, I have no other, there's no items for action, and I have no updates outside of the mayor's updates that was sent out last Friday. I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone has about those updates.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I assume council is receiving those updates that are being sent out on a pretty regular basis. We try to do that every time Pete and I have our staff meetings. So hopefully that's some help to you guys. Pardon me, you guys and you ladies. Okay, if you have nothing else, then we'll move on to the council meetings, and we'll start tonight, Pete, with you on the Economic Development Committee, please.
Yes, sir. I have just a couple slides I thought I would show, an abbreviated version of what I shared with the Econ Dev Committee meeting just a few days ago. The first item was a proposal from DPC Hospitality. We reached out to them. They, if you recall, they did a pro forma on our hotel site back. We signed a contract with them in January of 2020, way back when. They started that working on the pro forma to analyze the cost to develop that site, what the revenue potential was, and then the pandemic broke. So they reached out and decided to extend that that snapshot in time of the environment or the market for a hotel in our area. And so we then captured a pre and post COVID snapshot and presented that information to council in July. So we were looking at what was the next logical step to try to attract a developer to this site, given the circumstances facing the hospitality sector of our economy. And we reached out to a couple of these consultants, including DPC, who did our pro forma, and they offer opportunity for them to market the site on our behalf. So they actually proactively reach out to developers across the Mid-Atlantic region and even nationally to submit details about our sites. And what this does is cast a larger net. So we previously had only been working with local developers, primarily based out of Roanoke. And so what this does is kind of reach that net out a little bit further to see what other interests might be in this site. So they submitted a proposal back to the town, and the cost was roughly $15,000 to $20,000 for the town to enter into this agreement for about a 3-month window. Luckily, we did also have the EPA environmental assessment grant that we received a couple of years ago. We're in our second year now. And that program allows us to do environmental assessments on potentially redevelopable sites, but also allows us to do conceptual planning and marketing of those sites to potential developers. So we're able to tap into those assessment funds for this marketing proposal. So that $15,000 to $20,000 will be covered through a grant. So this is a really good avenue for us to take our hotel site to the next step, to get it in front of other larger, potentially larger developers who have an interest in making investment in this economy. And believe it or not, there are a lot of projects being moved forward. And the more faces, more desks we can get this site on, hopefully we'll get a good proposal. So the logical step to this is they reach out, they establish a connection, they provide the information, and then we will eventually request proposals from developers. DPC will then score and rank those proposals, negotiate on the town's behalf in hopes to secure the eventual developer that actually constructs and operates the hotel in town. So that's kind of where we're proceeding. So presented that information to the Econ Dev Committee, and they endorsed that concept to move forward. And as I said, we have since found that the EPA assessment grant will fund that. So it's pretty much an ideal circumstance. The next item was a proposal submitted from Farmer Gesa. I think I've mentioned this at a previous council meeting. We had an Econ Dev Committee meeting back in August, and the recommendation from the committee was to go back to the owners and say, kind of counter offer. They wanted to outright purchase the vacant lot that sits between the municipal building and Farmer Gesa. And because the owners of the restaurant didn't own the building, they were leasing it. Council members rightfully felt like there was an intermediate step we needed to take to validate that those leasees, the restaurant proprietors, but didn't own the building, could make that commitment, financial commitment to make the property improvements and establish that the concept could work, and that they would actually have an ownership stake into the building, not only the site. So that way we wouldn't lose control of the site, and that it was being developed and owned by the same folks. So I took that proposal back, and so this last Econ Dev Committee meeting presented that detail. So the slide that you're seeing now, those items in orange are new details. So the owners of Farmer Gesa have entered into a ownership partnership with the owner of the building. And I have seen the articles of incorporation that show that there's been a new business established for the ownership of the building, and that they will be the ones that will eventually own the property. And a lot of the details are the same. It'll be a outdoor patio. There will, when the new component will be an actual building addition, which will help for dry and cold storage that they desperately need for that small current footprint. There'll be a dumpster pad, enclosed dumpster pad and access drive. And this provides them with some opportunity to renovate the existing footprint to increase their kitchen capacity with an automated grill, which will allow them to produce burgers much quicker. And so the other details being the additional patrons they'll serve, and the ability to add ABC license. So this is the site there, again, between the municipal building and the existing Farmer Gesa. That green space there, it's a vacant lot the town purchased quite some time ago. And this is not a great rendering, but it is a rendering of kind of what we would anticipate. At the far top of your screen, the pie-shaped wedge, that is the existing footprint. It seats, I think, 13. They're not currently open due to the pandemic. They're just doing curbside and to-go orders. But that is the existing footprint. And then you see there in the middle of the page, the square box to the left is a building addition, and that will be cold and dry storage. The middle there is a area for patrons that would be pet friendly. And then the larger footprint there to the right that says the deck, that would be a brick paver patio enclosed structure that could be heated seasonally to extend their serving area during moderate climate conditions. And then the long drive there toward the bottom of the screen is the access drive using the existing curb cut onto Pollard to provide access to a dumpster, an enclosed dumpster. They are barely getting by with the 3 trash cans that we provide them now. And so if we expand their seating capacity threefold and actually a little bit more than that, obviously they're going to generate considerably a bit more refuse. So the dumpster is something that we would encourage them to pursue, and this would accommodate that. So council, the two members of council on the Econ Dev Committee directed staff to offer an agreement to Farmer Gesa or the new ownership group to initially lease this site with an option to purchase. And once they made the financial commitment to making the improvements and can verify the ownership, that we would come back to council at a future time to enter into a purchase agreement for them to have the opportunity to buy this property outright. So I have drafted the initial agreement and submitted that to our town attorney, and they'll be working on that and in hopes that we will come back to council in November to enter into a lease agreement with an option to purchase that would be allow us some time up for them to make this improvement to the site, and then we could come back to council for taking it to the next step of selling property. And then the last project we discussed was the Dogwood. It is a similar project where Keith Poff is the existing current owner of the Dogwood Restaurant, has entered into a new partnership with Jamie McCarthy, excuse me. And I have also seen the arrangements for that new ownership group. And their goals are to expand the indoor seating capacity into the building adjacent to the Dogwood, as well as building an exterior patio onto property the town is acquiring from the Vineyard Station project. And this would also provide approximately 48 additional customers for the exterior patio, not counting the interior expansion. And they would be adding a dinner menu and a ABC permit. And I have well, there's the site. That's the vacant lot that has been improved just recently with the pedestrian access that connects Lee Avenue to the rear parking of Vineyard Station. So you see where the existing Dogwood location is located, and then the vacant building currently that they will be expanding into. This is the top view is a front elevation looking from Creative Occasions, for an example, across the street toward the Dogwood. So you see the existing space, the expanded indoor space, and then the patio to the right. And the lower presentation there is, for example, standing in the vacant lot with your back to Cindy's Fashions, looking back toward the Dogwood. And so you can see the elevated patio that would be a retaining block. So it would be elevated from that contour. It would have railings. It would have the outdoor fire pit, and they would be putting in some windows and doors into the physical structure. And then here's the aerial view of that. So the existing Dogwood is the far left building. The middle space there is the expansion, and you can see a bar there in the middle, new expanded restrooms in the rear. And then to the right there is the patio, and that fits nicely into the contour of the new pedestrian access that we've engineered. So this has always been the intent, is to provide that pedestrian access to connect the businesses on Lee to the new parking at Vineyard Station, but to also provide this possibility for the Dogwoods expansion. So this has been a couple of years, almost as long as the conversations with Mr. Vineyard about developing Vineyard Station have we been talking with the Dogwood about this opportunity, and we've incorporated that into our design. So like the Farm Burguesa, the Econ Dev Committee directed staff to draft lease agreements. Unlike the Farm Burguesa, this would only be a lease agreement, no purchase to option in the future. And that is what the Dogwood desires. So we have also submitted that draft agreement to our attorney for review, and we will be bringing that back to council for your consideration in November. And that concludes my presentation on Econ Dev. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Council, any questions or comments at this time? All right, if not, we'll move on to the Finance Committee report. And if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Okay. So we're coming tonight. We actually had 2 meetings by this time. Sorry, my mouse is not working. There we go. So we had several items of discussion. I tried to put it here, September meeting and October meeting, so that you could kind of see the action of them that happened. We did the budget resolution that was on the consent agenda tonight. We did the Sally Bay door. We talked about some police vehicle repairs. We went over the June 2020 preliminary statement. We went over the July 2020 financial statement. And then we also at the next meeting talked about a budget resolution for the police department, a transfer for building projects, the second CARES Act budget piece, and then the August 2020 financial statements, and then lastly, the 2008 to 2020 top revenue analysis. And so in our preliminary June 2020 statements, we talked about how our revenues and expenditures were performing. So in the general fund, revenues were outpacing expenditures. You'll see they're 98% over 94%. The grant fund was 11% to 15%, which is normal in our grant fund because it's reimbursement basis. The utility fund was at 101% over 92% of expenditure. The capital fund was at 100% and expenditures were at 34%, primarily because we were storing up for the Mountain View Road project. The stormwater fund revenues were at 100% and expenditures were at 73%. And we did want to bring in there that that is the preliminary June financial statement that we discussed, and the auditors are actually completing the CAFR right now. We hope to bring that to you in the first meeting of December. We then went on to July. In July, revenues were much higher than anticipated, 130% of our budget expectations. Expenditures were at 90%. The grant fund, I wanted to make a note here that we wait until the audit numbers are final and then we roll over our recurring grants or multi-year grants. And so at this time, it hasn't been done. We're actually still waiting on final numbers to do that here in October. So revenues were at 3,000% and expenditures were at 13%, 13,000, 1,390, sorry. Utility revenues were at 76% and expenditures were at 29%. The capital fund revenues were at 100% and expenditures are at 0%. This is because we're setting aside all of the capital funds for the Mountain View Road project right now. The stormwater fund was at 100% and expenditures were at 82%. And then when we took a look at our cash, it's the highest that I had ever seen since I've been here. General fund cash was at 1.9 million. The grant fund was negative 155,000. And then the utility fund was at 1.5 million. Capital fund was at 411,000. Stormwater fund was at 57,000. So total cash across the funds was 3.8 million. The restricted funds were 502,000. The police evidence fund, this is for cases waiting to go through the court, was 23,216. The general fund investment account is 2.2 million. The utility fund investment account was 978,000. The total investment is 3.2 million. So at the end of the day, when you added all of our cash and investments and restricted together, we got $7 million, which is outstanding. So then the next thing we wanted to talk about is we're just plowing on through to August. August slowed down a little bit. So, you know, revenues were at 130%. Now they're at 115%. That's more what we would expect. Still very, very high. Expenditures at 87%. So we're still not even spending. We're doing a great job like holding those to a good level. The grant fund, we're waiting on that rollover. The utility fund, we're at 113%. So despite pandemic woes or concerns with the schools being one of our top users, it's still coming in at a good level on revenue. Expenditures are at 66% of budget. Capital fund is at 100%. Our expenditures are at 0%. And then the stormwater fund's at 100% and the expenditures are at 77%. So then when we look at cash for August, it's not quite as wonderful as July, but it's still the best August that I've ever seen since I've been treasurer. So general fund cash is 1.8 million. You can see we've been a little busy on our grant fund. We're waiting for 230,000 to get reimbursed. Utility funds at 1.3 million. The capital funds at 426,000. Stormwater funds at 69,000. The total cash was 3.4 million. Our restricted funds are pretty much the same, 505,000. And the evidence fund didn't change, 23,000. General fund investments were 2.2 million. Utility funds was 978,000. Total investment of 3.2 million. So when we added it all together, total cash investments was 6.6 million, which is actually pretty normal for us to use that amount of cash. I think our heaviest month or our lowest cash month of the year is actually November. So we're getting really close to that. And then when we get through November, we start collecting real estate taxes second half, and then we have business license in the spring, and our collections start to grow. So some of the other items that we covered, we did new radar units for our police department, and they actually covered that from asset forfeiture funds. Sally Bay Door, similar story, they covered that from their forfeiture funds. There was a repair on 2 police vehicles that got hit by a deer within 1 day of each other, and they're 1 vehicle number apart. So that was kind of an interesting story there. The police department received a donation from a church to feed the officers. So we appropriated that down to allow them to purchase meals for the officers. And then one of the things we talked about in the meeting was that Valley Metro has elected to waive the locality fees through the rest of, I think, January or so until their CARES funding runs out. So we are able to use that money to fund building projects that weren't covered under the CARES Act. So we asked to move the money around to complete that project. We also did the budget piece for the second CARES Act. We had agreed to the MOU, and this was just putting the budget on the books that followed that MOU. And then the last thing that we covered was a revenue analysis from 2008 to 2020. And I just wanted to give you a brief summary of, we looked at them an individual level, and I'm just going to give you a high level summary here. Our top 4 revenues in the town of Vinton are communication, sales and use tax, business license taxes, meals tax, and sales tax. Those are our highest local taxes that generate money in the general fund. And if you look here, we had really slow to low growth 2009 to 2018. And what I'm hearing from some of the economics sessions and stuff that I'm attending is they're calling this the lost decade. So it's not just Vinton, it's actually everywhere. But we wanted to show you just kind of a visual on how these revenues were performing. So several years, they were either negative or less than 2%. And then you can see we really picked up in 2019 at 8.64%. And in 2020, despite the pandemic, I know it would have been a lot better if we didn't shut down, but we still grew 3.61%. So really great news. And that is all I have. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have on the financial report. And we would ask that you would consider a motion to approve the 3 financial statements that we reviewed.
Okay, and thank you very much. It was a great report because a lot of information and you got through it quite well. So thank you for that. Council, you have any questions or comments? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve the preliminary financial reports for June, July, and August of 2020.
Mr. Mayor, I make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Susan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lyles,
Yes.
Councilmember Mullins,
Yes.
Councilmember Stovall,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McCarty,
Yes.
Mayor Gross.
Yes. Thank you, council. Motion passes. All right, our next item is the Public Works Committee report, Mr. Joey. So Joey, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. On September 16th, we had a Public Works Committee meeting, and I'm going to go over a few of the items that we discussed at that meeting. Most of these are project updates. We have Walnut Avenue and 8th Street intersection. The UVA TTA part of LTAP performed an RSA. I think I hit most of the alphabet there, but it was a road safety assessment. And what we did on improvements there was new markings in the intersection and some new signage. The grant totaled just under $15,000 that they gave us for the markings in the signage. So we have new striping, and this is complete as of August. And if you go through there, you'll notice there's an LED sign for the low clearance at the trestle at Wise Avenue, similar to what is on the Roanoke side when you're coming into town. So we now have one of those, and that project is complete. It just took some time working with the folks at the Transportation Technical Assistance folks with UVA. Project going on there now is the bike and pedestrian accommodations. That's the connector for the greenway in the town near 5th and Walnut to get to the greenway at Roanoke City. Right now, we're still in the design stage, updating the design. That project will put a sidewalk on the north side. That's on the southern states or Cargill side. On the south side, on the Bob's Restaurant side, is to be a multi-use path for pedestrians and bicyclists on that side, with medians separating the pathway from the traffic lanes. And that we've been working with our consultants and engineers on that. And Anita and I have been working with them on actually talking with the property owners there as far as some of the adjustments in the design there for the new entrances and such through there. That's one of those projects that the design for it looks great, and it's going to definitely improve the looks of that area through there. The Glade Creek Greenway project, that's the project that's taken the Greenway from Gus Nix back behind the old William Byrd and going that way towards old Gearhart Park, ultimately to come out at Walnut. We have a sewer line replacement project going through there. It's kind of been stretched out because we have issues with the first contractor we had out there doing work. So we had to pick up a new contractor on there, and they had to start over essentially on there. And that's to install about 550 feet of sewer line and 3 manholes. Completion of that part of the project is expected to be at the end of the month, October 30th. Looking about doing some improvements to traffic signals. We had put in the plans to update some traffic signal equipment at particular intersections. And the plans for that has been impacted due to the budget considerations for COVID-19. Hopefully we'll be able to look at that in the upcoming months to reinvigorate that and have a good work plan. Currently, work continues at the Hardy Vineyard intersection and the Washington Gus Nix Pollard intersection, where they're putting in crosswalks and the pedestrian signals. And you may have seen, if you've gone through the intersection there at Vineyard, at Hardy and Vineyard, they've got most of the infrastructure in place. We actually now have an optical detector for the signal that was kind of a bonus with that project. Next steps are to actually put in the markings for the crosswalks at that intersection. And at the Washington Gus Nix Pollard intersection, you'll see there's a lot of work going on there. And they have yet to put in the markings for that as well, and some other stuff they have to put in there. Both projects are expected to finish by the end of year into December on that. We've put out the bid for paving for this year. We're going to try to get the paving in fall. And the bid was awarded to Boxley for $326,000, which is lower than we anticipated and leaves us about $70,000 more that we can use for a couple other streets for paving. And this will be all milling and paving on this bid. And then we had a traffic study that is ongoing. And this is for the 2nd Street area, 2nd Street between Walnut and Virginia Avenue. The town received a request from a resident for 4-way stops at the intersections of 2nd and Cedar Avenue and 2nd and Cleveland Avenue. The request was presented to the Public Safety / Highway Safety Committee. And that committee recommended a study be performed by a consultant to evaluate the traffic in that area and determine if 4-way stops are reasonable. Some of the things to consider there is that 2nd Street and 3rd Street, and the traffic study is to look at 2nd Street and 3rd Street as well. Those are part of the truck route between Virginia Avenue and Walnut. We did go in there and put a double yellow line through there. 2nd Street was paved just in the past couple of years, and we did not go back and put the double yellow stripe in there. If we're looking for some traffic control, just adding that stripe kind of gives a visual for drivers going through there, looking about possibly calming the traffic going through that area. The police department has participated by putting up some of the radar speed limit signs, and they also put out some equipment to do some traffic counts through there. The consultant has done observations and has also done some traffic counts and some turning maneuver counts through that area. And they've collected the data. They're going to be going through the data and hopefully be able to give us a report next month on that, about the 4-way stops and maybe some other things in that stretch of the road. We also discussed bulk collection as we have switched to alternating weeks on bulk collection. We're alternating between recycling and the bulk. That started August 17th. Before that time, we did inform the residents of this change. We sent out a notice and a magnet. Vinton Messenger also did a great article about that. And on the website, we've changed the calendar and put some notices on there to let the residents know about this change. We're hoping to maintain communication with the residents on this to work through that, keep up with the items that we collect, what we don't collect, and the manner in which we collect it. We will be keeping track, Public Works will be keeping track of the bulk collection data into the next year so that we can kind of compare with what we have done previous to that. So far, we have seen an increase, or our operators have seen an increase of 75 to 100% each day. So each collection day is almost twice as much as what they've been getting previous to that. With the holidays coming up, that's always a big bulk and trash time, we're going to be making special considerations during that time for the bulk collection. Since the meeting, since our actual Public Works Committee meeting, there's been discussion with the committee members to review where we are in about 6 months, with the possibility of looking at keeping it at every other week or going back to weekly collection. So all the information that Public Works is going to collect on this will go in towards that. An ongoing item that we've had at the Public Works Committees has been the right-of-way mowing ordinance. And we're continuing discussion on that ordinance. Some points that were brought up during the meeting concerned enforcement and penalties, and also that we're looking for this ordinance to provide teeth for code enforcement officer to be able to enforce these ordinances and some of our other ordinances that are related to this. At the next Public Works Committee meeting, staff will present a list of the areas that the town expects to continue to maintain through this ordinance. Another item that was brought up has to do with the Roanoke Valley Resource Authority. With the transportation option, and the authority is looking towards transitioning from rail hauling to trucking to take the waste from the Tinker Creek Transfer Station and the Salem Transfer Station to the Smith Gap landfill. That project will be to change the rail, essentially take up the rail and use the existing rail bed and convert it to a private road for trucking on that. Since we've had the meeting, there was a special, since we had our Public Works Committee meeting, there's been a special meeting in the Bradshaw area at the Masons Cove Elementary School. And that was for RVRA and representatives from the Roanoke County Board of Supervisors to go over what we're looking at on the changes to that, to kind of let them know that it's going to be beneficial for their neighborhood, so we won't have to put trucks out through there, that there will be a private road specifically for that and not have to bother that neighborhood at all. That meeting went very well and had a few informed questions, and right now it looks like we're just moving on towards making a final decision on that option. I think that covers pretty much everything we talked about. We do have another meeting scheduled for next month where we'll be able to update some of these items to the committee.
Okay, Joey, thank you very much for that report. Council, you have any questions or comments for Joey? All right, if not, we will move on to the mayor's section for tonight. Always riveting, of course, but I only have one item. I heard that cheer, but it is a little longer than normal. I'd just like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank the entire staff here at the town of Vinton. We are truly blessed to have dedicated professional members in every department. We are extremely fortunate to have a staff that not only takes pride in their work, but they also consistently show their love for this great community. All too often, we have taken for granted the hard work our staff performs every single day. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed some interesting things about our society. In some situations, the pandemic has reminded us that we are truly fortunate to have people like our staff around us. The virus has caused an extra workload in every department, and yet our services continue to be delivered without interruption or fail. Everything the town does for our citizens now takes more effort. And, we've had to contend with some difficult situations. In addition to the regular and required services that we perform for our citizens, the town has continued to host special events. Our staff has worked closely with the Vinton Area Chamber of Commerce to host events such as the Bingo at the Market and the Fall Festival. These important activities have always required hard work on the part of many people in the chamber and every department in the town. Because we want to have safe events and follow the guidelines of the CDC and the Commonwealth of Virginia, even more work, coordination, and cooperation is required. Other events such as the National Night Out and the upcoming movie night are examples of the extra effort made by everyone involved to help our community cope with the pandemic in a reasonably safe manner. All of our departments continue to make us proud by being heavily involved in community activities. While I especially want to recognize our staff, I also want to thank our citizens. The residents and businesses in Vinton have stepped up to support our town during this difficult and unusual time. Although we have had to modify some activities because of COVID-19, our citizens have been understanding and cooperative. We are profoundly grateful for all the support. At this point, we cannot predict the length of the pandemic. However, with God's help and the combined efforts of our citizens and our staff, there is no doubt that the town of Vinton will remain a great place to live, work, and visit. It's truly a blessing to be in Vinton. Thank you for your patience, folks. And with that, I will turn it over to council for their comments. We usually start with the vice mayor. Sabrina, you have anything this evening?
I had to unmute myself, but thank you for all of those wise words and wisdom there from the mayor. I greatly appreciate it. We definitely have had to go to a new normal, and I think we've all worked together very well with some very creative ideas on how we can somewhat continue our lifestyle. So again, thanks to staff, the police department, every department head, just for continuing on and having a positive attitude to make it through this very trying time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Very well said. It's a positive attitude goes a long way. So thank you for that. Councilmember Keith Lyles, you're next, sir.
All right, thanks, Mayor. I think you kind of summed it up with your speech there and hit just about everything that I was going to talk about as well. But great job. Budget looks awesome, Ann, and staff. I mean, it's promising, especially in times like these, to see a budget look like that. So we are very blessed. And downtown, coming through downtown every day, it's, with the new restaurants, the parking lot is taking shape. It's just really going to enhance our town. I'm really excited to see the signs go up for Joe Good Pies. The outside on the front's getting ready to be bricked up. The windows look like they're just about ready to be installed. It's just going to change our downtown. With Halloween and National Night Out, Chief, you did a great job with National Night Out. I think it was a real big success. And now we have Halloween coming up doing the same thing. And I'm not sure what the town's plans are, but Chief, if you don't mind checking with Caldwell, I heard he could do really good. He makes good popcorn, and he doesn't mind sitting all day making bags of popcorn. So he is a leader. He's a leadership award, so he could lead popcorn for the
Yes,
town.
sir. He'll be taking the leadership, and we'll be doing candy this time. So we're taking over the candy business.
Congratulations to him too, because when I was at National Night Out, we were at the popcorn stand, if you will, and the drinks, and a bunch of kids came up all together, and they were asking, "Where's Sergeant Caldwell? Where's Caldwell at?" And so he was in there making popcorn. So I had to go tell him that he had a fan club out there. When he came out, the kids came running to him. So he deserves that award. And he's a great addition, along with all of our other officers, to our town too. So I'm just really excited about everything going on. Even during this pandemic, we are an amazing town. It's great to be here.
Yes, you're exactly right. It's great to be here. We are still an amazing town. Great comment there, sir. Okay, and with that, we'll move to Councilmember Marlins. Do you have anything further this evening?
Yes, sir. I agree with everything. I cannot wait to see what happens with the different restaurants expanding and the new things coming, and it's just very exciting. I enjoyed National Night Out also, and I also wanted to say thank you to the police department for their daily tasks as well. And want to see if you guys saw the article in the Benton Messenger about Caldwell and his flag etiquette with the elementary schools. And
Absolutely.
I just think that is so important. When I was at what was then Hardy Road Elementary in 5th grade, it was a big honor to be part of the flag crew. And at that time, Mr. Coles was in charge, and you did it right, and you did it on time. And it was an honor and a privilege, and it was something I'll never forget. And I worried when he retired if the kids were going to have the same sort of structure with that and information. And it looks like it has taken off even better. And I'm excited about that. And I can understand why the kids are excited to see Caldwell out, other than, coming to school and doing things. So that's exciting. So thank you guys for that very much.
All right, thank you for those comments. You're exactly right. It was a great article. It really was. And with that, we will move to Councilmember Stovall. You have anything further this evening, Mike?
No, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate everything. I mean, I think everybody has said, to get to me, I think everybody said everything. And so, hey, y'all have a great evening. And it was a great council meeting. And thank you to, well, I will say this. Thank you to Ann Cantrell, or I call her our bean counter. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's been a great meeting. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. You know what? We may have to reverse the order at some meeting just to so everything isn't hashed over by the time we get to you. So we'll do that, Mike. We'll reverse the order, and I might say too that Mike does a great job on our finance committee. He's really stepped up to bat. So thank you, sir, for the job you're doing.
It's a pleasure. It's truly. We have, as we said last week in the finance committee meeting, and I'll say this to Ann, and I say this tongue in cheek, but counting the beans, we came through a pandemic. We came through losing a lot of revenue for the town. And when you sit down in a meeting and she lays out a plan that she had prior to the pandemic, and then understood that we lost a lot of revenue, but still though that we came through it well, percentages, revenues, yes. And you know what? I want to take my hat off to the town manager, Mr. Peters. So anyway, but hey, great meeting.
Yeah.
it was, everybody have a great week, but anyway, it was a great meeting and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And of course, don't forget, we are going to have a closed session here in just a minute. But since most people will be signing off, is there anything else to come before the Benton Town Council this evening? If not, thank you folks for being here tonight. And we do have a request to convene in a closed meeting. This is pursuant to 2.2-3711 of the 1950 Code of Virginia as amended. And this is for discussion regarding appointments to boards and commission and discussion and consideration of the assignment, duties, and performance of the interim police chief. Is there a motion?
I'll
Chief,
make a
I'm,
mo-
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Keith.
No, you go ahead, Lori.
I'll make a motion.
And I will,
So Keith, I got you down as the second, right?
I'll second it.
So Susan, do we call a roll at this point
When you come back out.
when we come back out to, yeah, okay. All right, well, thank you, folks. So,
But we do need a voice vote.
oh, okay, all in favor of going into the closed session, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.